Hello, my name is Michael Chaiton. I am a senior scientist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health and an associate professor at the University of Toronto, and I'm the PI of the Smoke Free Connect. And today I'm really happy to have with me Skip Murray, who is a former vape store owner and strong voice in support of using vaping products to help people quit smoking. We're here to talk about using vaping products. This is certainly not medical advice, but Skip has a lot of experience in understanding the quitting smoking journey. And there are ways of using vaping products to help people quit. And so we're really happy to have her here today. Skip, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Could you tell me a little bit about how you got into being an advocate for vaping?
Well, I started smoking when I was 10, and by the time I was a senior in high school, I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And I did that for many decades. And when my son was 29 years old, he started smoking when he was 18. So he had smoked for 11 years. He had a heart attack and almost died. And he picked up a vape, and within a week, he quit smoking. And at the time, I didn't even know what a vape was. When he successfully quit smoking, he said, Mom, we have got to help other people do this. And he opened a vape shop, and I helped him out at the shop all the time. And in 2018, he moved on to other things, and I took over his vape shop. But when he first opened his vape shop, I would sneak out the back door and have a cigarette. And one day he said to me, Mom, you cannot smoke at my vape shop anymore. And he said, think about it, Mom. People are coming in here, they're trying to quit smoking, or they just quit smoking, and they walk in the door and they smell cigarettes. And so he gave me a vape, and I wasn't even going to try to quit smoking. I had tried so many times over my life. I knew I could not quit smoking, and I was not going to be a failure anymore. So I didn't even try. And I just used the vape when I couldn't smoke. And funny things happen. You always have your cigarettes in your right hand pocket, and you don't even think about it sometimes when you smoke. You get in the car, you grab a cigarette, and you light up. Well, then my vape ended up in my pocket, and sometimes I would grab that instead of a cigarette. It was 4 or 5 months later, I realized I didn't know the last time I had a cigarette. I had accidentally quit smoking. Best accident I've ever had in my life. So when he got out of the business, I took over the shop, and I really enjoyed helping people. That was a very rewarding thing to do. And then I had to close the end of 2021. I live in a small town, and the market just wouldn't support the shop anymore. And I was just brokenhearted. I didn't know what I was going to do because I just dedicated all my time to helping people. And I had done a little advocacy work because as a shop owner, my son would want to testify at city council meetings and those types of things. And he has a learning disability, so it's hard for him to write a speech and then try to read it or whatever. So, good old mom, I would do it for him. And I found it rewarding to try to find a way to keep these products on the market so more and more people could quit smoking. I had so many family members over the years die from smoking that this really just turned into a passion project for me. I've been involved in various forms of advocacy since then. And a few years ago, I got offered the tobacco treatment course from Rutgers University, and I took their specialist course. And now I get to combine traditional smoking cessation methods with the things I learned by the seat of my pants and things from the vape shop, and can really cater people's journeys to what specifically fits their needs. And I really think that is something that's missing in traditional smoking cessation is you have a formula, but people aren't formulas, and making it more person-centered actually helps more people find that thing that works for them to help them quit smoking. Here I am.
That's great. And so when somebody would have come into your shop and said, "I'm here to look to use vaping to help me quit smoking. I don't know where to start." Would you say to them? Walk me through that process.
It's really important to get to know the person. Why do they want to stop smoking? How much do they smoke? Why do they smoke? There is such a variety in products, and there are so many different things to appeal to. Everybody assumes it's just about being addicted to nicotine, but there is so much other things tied to smoking, that taking a break or the sensory issue or whatever. So finding out why they smoke or what they like about smoking, how much they smoke, so you have an idea of how much nicotine they do need to still be using, helps you cater that journey to specifically meet their needs. So it really just starts with a friendly chit chat, just trying to get to know them a little better. It's amazing. Everybody thinks that everybody would just quit smoking for their health, but a lot of people, it's finances, or they just got a puppy and they don't want to expose the puppy, or they just had a child and they don't want to expose the child, or they just got a job and they have to pay higher health insurance premiums if they smoke. There are so many different reasons, and you can help motivate them if you cater what they're doing to quit smoking to the reason why they want to quit.
And so when someone takes a vape home, what are the different pathways that they use? Is it very easy for most people just to pick up a vape, be able to make that switch, or do some people take a longer time to learn how to use it?
It depends upon what device they get. Some, all you do is inhale, just like you have a cigarette, except you don't have to light it first. You just inhale. Other ones have a power button. Some have screens and multiple settings, and you can use higher and lower wattage, and you can experiment with different coils and get different flavoring. And so I'm finding for people that aren't into technology, a lot of times with older people, or some people with disabilities with their hands and those kinds of things, the simpler you can keep the device so it's just as easy to vape as it is to smoke, helps them transition. If you get somebody that's real into tech and all the fancy stuff, then the novelty of a more complicated device is actually appealing to them. So again, you've got to listen to the person who wants to quit smoking and cater your suggestions to their needs.
And so when people struggle with switching from smoking to vaping, what are the reasons that they give you for that struggle, for not being able to do it?
Again, there's a whole list. One of the first things I tell them is, if you are feeling agitated, edgy, angry, you're probably not getting enough nicotine and you are experiencing withdrawal. On the other hand, the inhalation is a little different. Plus, it's something new and it's novel. And some people will actually at first vape more than they smoked, which is fine. If it keeps them from smoking, go for it. But if they pick a product that has a really high nicotine level, you can actually vape enough to make yourself sick to the stomach. So then, if they experience that kind of thing, I tell them you either need to vape less or pick a product with a lower level of nicotine so you can vape as much as you want, but not put so much in your system to feel sick to the stomach. The vapor is a little different than smoke. So at first you might cough a little bit, and that'll startle people and they'll go, "Oh, this isn't good." So letting them know in advance that you might cough a little bit. And after you've not smoked for a while, some people will actually, for a week or two, cough up extra phlegm, and that goes away also. Some people might experience a little irritation in their throat if they're using what's called a free base nicotine, which would be like the nicotine in a cigarette. And it's important to remember to hydrate and soothe your throat. And it's another sensation that goes away after a little while. Those would be the big ones that hit people at first.
So one of the important things you're saying is that finding the right dose of nicotine is kind of key. You need more enough to meet your cravings, but not too much that it makes you feel uncomfortable. Are people nervous about using high levels of nicotine? Do you see a fear of nicotine, of switching to this electronic device from tobacco?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. There's a lot of misinformation out in the universe. So some people will believe that it's the nicotine that causes heart disease or cancer. I helped a person quit smoking who took forever to be able to transition, and that constant interviewing. And I found out their fear was they had heard that if you quit smoking, you have a higher risk of a heart attack. Some people have heard that if you vape, you have a higher risk of a heart attack than if you smoke. So you also have to play the part of an educator and make sure people understand that the most dangerous part about smoking is the combustion. Vaping isn't 100% safe. Nothing in life is. And if anybody tells you that, they're not telling you the truth. There are potential risks with anything we do in life, that includes vaping. But it's really important to make sure that somebody who wants to quit smoking doesn't fear the nicotine, because that can, in your head, you go, well, then I like smoking. I might as well just keep smoking. They need to know that they are reducing potential harms to themselves. That helps motivate them to stick out the withdrawal, the whole change in life kind of thing.
And are people afraid about the becoming addicted to vaping products as well? That is there a fear that I'm just trading off one set of addictions for another? I'm sure there's many different reactions to that. What's your experience?
Very rarely has that been a concern, but it has happened. It seems to be more of a concern with the people around them, be it society, an employer, a family member, a friend. And that of it's actually a negative way to speak to a person that's trying to step away from the most dangerous thing they're doing in their life. Being addicted without the harms of smoking is not like being addicted with the harms of smoking. And it gets frustrating at times because when people are constantly told that, it really slows down their efforts to try to walk away from smoking.
There's certainly stigma about smoking. Do you find there's a stigma around vaping too? How does that affect the ability of people to be able to quit with vaping products?
There is stigma around it, and I think it's actually worse now than it was 10 years ago. Unfortunately, you would hope it would go the other way. One way to get people to quit smoking years ago was to denormalize smoking. And a good way to denormalize it was to add stigma on it. So it was with the best of intentions was done, but there's been so much hype over vaping and fear by the public over vaping that that stigma has really transferred. And I even think about when I quit smoking, believing I could not quit smoking and to stop trying. That has a lot to do with stigma and shame because you don't like to be a failure. And if you think about somebody who smokes, what's the first thought that pops into the average person's head? They smell, they have yellow teeth, they're weak, they have no willpower. All of those are negative. You're a bad person, you're a loser. People start believing that about themselves, and that doesn't give them any strength to make a major change in their life. So it's sad to see that stigma slide over, but it has.
And so, how do you coach people through that challenge of both the feeling of the difficulty of quitting cigarettes and the pathways, which may be where you'll trip up and have a cigarette and or go back to smoking for a while? How do you help people through that part of the experience?
My job is to be their cheerleader, not their judge. And anybody that wants to support somebody who's trying to quit smoking should do the exact same thing. So I think about all the times I failed to quit smoking. I never gave myself credit for I went a day without smoking, or once I went 3 years without smoking. I never celebrated that victory. And every last cigarette you smoke is a victory. And so we need to celebrate those victories instead of throwing pitchforks for what's perceived as a failure. So that's my primary role. I need to be their cheerleader. I'm their support team. I believe in them. I celebrate their victories. I answer questions. That's the most valuable thing I can give anybody. That's meeting people where they're at.
And are there people who don't like vaping ultimately? Are there other products that would be better for them?
Absolutely. There is no right way to quit smoking. If there was a cure all for smoking, we'd have already solved that problem and moved on to something else in society. There is no one size fits all. And when I have a new person in my quit smoking support groups, the first thing we do is discuss all the options because there's many. There's the one I'm most against is cold turkey because that's the hardest way. But there are medications, there are nicotine replacement products, there are vapes, there is nicotine pouches. In some places, there's the new heat not burn that's not available where I live. I think educating people about all the different things they can try and how to use those products, and then let them decide what sounds the most appealing to them. And it surprises me because sometimes in my group, some of the people will pick something else. But it's my job to help them think of what would work the best for them. And some of them do have to try different things. Even with vaping, a lot of times people will experiment before they find something that gives them something at least close to as satisfying as they found smoking. And that's a hard part for the public to understand, that a lot of us like smoking. I still miss smoking and I haven't smoked since it's been 11 years since I smoked.
Oh,
I still
congratulations.
miss smoking. So you've got to take things like satisfaction into mind too, not just replacing the nicotine.
I think that's so important that we sort of underestimate how pleasurable smoking can be, and that it is an important part of people's lives. You may go through periods of regret over, not being able to have those cigarettes at those times where you used to be able to use them. Are there any other myths around vaping that you are interested in dispelling?
Ones that concern people when they're first exploring the possibility of trying vaping is, at least in the United States where I am, E-Valley was a big thing 2020, which was just labeled as vaping or e-cigarette, which to consumers, an e-cigarette is a nicotine product. Unfortunately, to some organizations, an e-cigarette is any vapor product, and it's amazing how many things are vaped. It's not just nicotine, it's THC. I've seen caffeine vapes, I've seen all kinds of different things can be vaped. So that's the fear, vaping, and then this terrible lung thing happens, and you're on a ventilator, and then you're dead. Similar to that is the myth that vaping causes popcorn lung, which is also not true. A lot of times you have to work on those. Those are the two biggest ones, I think. Once in a while, somebody would ask if vaping is as or more addicting than a cigarette. Once in a while, people will ask, does vaping cause cancer? Does it cause heart disease? And so far, no, but you can't give that guarantee. They've only been available commercially since the early 2000s. Some of the side effects of cigarettes take decades. So the science that's out there shows that there's less of harmful products. Is there enough less to not cause anything? We just don't have any way of knowing. And that bothers some people, but I encourage them that no matter what you choose to do, giving up smoking is the best thing you can do. So, yeah, nothing would be optimal 100%, but that's not what's going to happen for some people. That's not reality for some people. So, do something less harmful. And they're like, well, what is all this harm reduction stuff? And I'm like, you realize you practice harm reduction every day. Do you lock your door to keep out strangers? Do you wear a seatbelt? Do you wear safety glasses when you're working with power tools? Every day we use harm reduction. it's just a normal part of life, and we don't think of it as harm reduction. Sense to worry less about what might happen in 50 years if you vape and worry more about what's going to happen in 50 years if you keep smoking.
That's really important. How do people respond to that harm reduction idea? Are they concerned about that sort of relative risk of or the risks of vaping directly?
I find the people who smoke are worried less than like you'll have two people come in to a vape shop together. One smokes, one doesn't, like maybe a partner or something. I'll usually find the person who doesn't smoke, who's seen all the really nasty headlines, be more concerned about harm than the person who smokes. And I find that interesting. But I think, all heard all our lives how dangerous smoking is. So we don't even need anybody lecturing us anymore that when we're smoking, it's harmful. We know that. Um, just haven't found a way to walk away from that, to replace everything we get from it. So even when a loved one is concerned, I like science. I have plenty of studies at my disposal. I can show them evidence. I'm finding just speaking from the heart and being very sincere and be concerned about that person that smokes and really want to help them was most of the time a good experience at the vape shop. We had a couple local people that are anti any nicotine use. One of them came into my shop once and pretty nasty and just in it for the money. And I showed her my books and said, "Tell me where I'm taking a paycheck from this." And some people do make a living off of it, but for me, it wasn't about the money. If it was about the money, I wouldn't be running a volunteer quit smoking group right now. So, in a way, a vape shop for a lot of people was the best of both worlds. Some people do make a living off of it, and they get to help people.
That must have been a very fulfilling as a business and on a personal level. Did you have
I
some
loved
good
it.
success stories?
Yes, a lot of them. What keeps you going year after year after year. We had a woman come in our shop, and she was an older lady. And remember looking out the window as she walked by because she actually was leaning a hand on the window to support herself. And she came in the door and she was just gasping for air. And we had a couch right inside the door, and she just flopped down on the couch. And I asked her if she was okay, and she couldn't even speak. She held up a finger, need a minute. And when she finally got up and walked up to the counter, said she had all kinds of health problems, but she said her doctor told her if she didn't quit smoking, she wasn't going to be with us much longer. And oh my goodness, like every device out of the display case, it was so interesting to watch her because it was a foreign object to her. And what appealed to her, the size, the shape, even the color of the device. You found one in her favorite color, but then you have to go through all the flavors and find one that appeals to her. And a lot of people assume that they're going to want a tobacco flavor because they're trying to quit smoking. But a lot of them find out that one, tobacco flavored vapes don't exactly taste like a cigarette. I never did find one I like. But two, why would you want to be reminded of the very thing you're trying to quit? So most of the time they choose a flavor, which she did. And she was from another town. Her town didn't have a vape shop. She bought a lot of product because she wasn't going to be back in my town for a while. And months she didn't come back. And I felt bad, like we failed to help her. But many months later, she came back and she walked in the door and she's got this big grin on her face and she's throwing her arms up in the air and look at me, I can breathe. And she was just so excited. And she bought a bunch of more product and she had to hurry up and get out of there because she said, I can keep up with my grandkids now. And I'm going to go take my granddaughter to the park. And she's just so animated and so happy. So I sold her what she needed and she just got to me. She asked for a hug before she left. And the woman just started to sob. And she said, "Thank you. I think you saved my life." And I'm like, oh my goodness. She left and I went and collapsed on the exact same spot on the couch she had been on. And I just cried. I was so
grateful. And my speech I just gave, the theme was time, because what we gave her was better health, but we gave her the gift of time because now she's healthy enough and energetic enough to give her grandchildren time. You put a value on time. So, yeah, there were a lot of experiences like that. A new dad with a newborn, and his motivation for quitting was he didn't want his kid growing up around that. That was the best part about owning a shop, was just that gift you gave people.
Those are amazing stories, Skip. It just shows that being able to help people and being able to hear tales and help them along their journey and finding the way that they need to move to be able to quit smoking for their lives. And I want to thank you so much for speaking with us today, and thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love sharing that experience.